The movie begins with a little girl named Eve, covered in blood, staring at a ballerina in her music box. In a flashback, her father once praised her dancing, said she was growing fast, and gently encouraged her to keep trying. He mentioned she reminded him of her sister, though Eve could no longer picture her face. With a soft smile, he told her not to grow up too quickly before he returned. Afterward, armed men rose from the water and headed into the house. The attackers kill a guard and storm inside of the home. The father reacts fast. He fights back with smoke grenades and traps, then rushes to Eve. Staying calm, he reminds her of their training. She watches in fear as he hides her in a secret spot and returns to face the attackers. One by one, he fights the attackers with everything he has. From her hiding spot, Eve watches, frozen in fear. But there are too many. Eventually, they overpower him. Wounded and on the ground, he stays silent. The Chancellor arrives, full of rage, steps forward and accuses him of betrayal, of being welcomed into their family, marrying one of their daughters, and then breaking their trust. He blames him for a stolen life and the death of his wife. Now, they are here for Eve. Still, the father says nothing, so they keep beating him. As he loads a bullet, the Chancellor says a bullet means nothing until someone pulls the trigger. That's when a person's true self is revealed. Then comes the choice. The father must either give up his life to save Eve or try to kill the Chancellor and risk everything. The Chancellor tells him clearly it's his decision and he must have the courage to make it. As the father prepares to make his choice, a small voice cuts through the tension. Eve steps out from hiding and calls to him. The attackers spot her immediately. Her father reacts fast, taking down a few enemies with sharp, precise shots. But one of them tackles him, pinning him to the ground. As he's about to be killed, Eve sees a gun nearby. Without thinking, she grabs it, hands shaking, and fires. The shot hits. She saves him just in time. With tears in her eyes, she runs to him, helps him up, and gently wipes the blood from his face. They escape through a hidden passage. Before leaving, he sets a timed explosive. They make it out just as the house explodes behind them. On the other side, the Chancellor, who was outside when it happened, survives. As her father, badly injured and fading fast, struggles to breathe, he apologizes to Eve. He knows he won't survive. Once he sees she's safe, he lets go and dies in her arms. Back in the present, Winston Scott arrives. He approaches gently, offering no false comfort. Instead, he speaks honestly. He tells her father was a good man who only wanted a better life for her, far from the violence he once knew. Winston admits what happened to her father was unjust, and that is why he's here now. He offers her a place with her father's side of the family, a chance to start again. Eve has nowhere else to go. She stays quiet, then gives a small nod and reaches out her hand. Later, she prepares to meet the person who will guide her into this new life. Meanwhile, Winston speaks with Nogi. He says Eve still doesn't know the full truth about her parents. When Eve finally meets the group's director, the woman greets her with a voice that's both strong and kind. She asks if Eve can dance. When Eve says yes, the woman tells her she understands her pain. The director offers Eve a path forward, to take her pain and anger and turn them into strength. She tells her not to let the people who destroyed her past have any say in her future. Later, Eve quietly says goodbye to Winston. She thanks him sincerely, and he promises that no matter what happens, he will always be there for her, and departs away. That's when Eve meets Nogi, the instructor at the Ruska Roma, a secretive, intense institution where discipline is everything. Her father was once part of it. They called him a Kikimora. From then on, Eve commits herself fully to ballet. Every movement feels like a fight, but she never quits, where elegance and pain go hand in hand. One day during rehearsal, the director sees Eve's bleeding feet. She tells her to rest and calls in Tatiana to take over. Eve quietly leaves. As Eve approaches Tatiana, Tatiana notices Eve's wound and kindly tells her to rest. But Eve isn't dancing for praise. Her goal runs deeper. She wants to become a Kikimora like her father. Her training intensifies. She learns to fight, to move in silence, to use weapons, and to kill if needed. The innocent girl she once was fades. In her place, a deadly name begins to take shape. At Ruska Roma, the most important rule is simple. Protect your assigned target at all costs. Breaking that rule isn't an option. Eve trains hard for this test, but no matter how much she tries, she keeps falling short. Nogi lays it out clearly. Eve keeps losing not because she lacks skill, but because something inside her allows it. The problem is not physical, it's mental. Nogi tells her that winning takes more than strength. She needs to be alert, flexible, and willing to think differently. She shouldn't follow anyone else's path. She has to fight like herself. Inspired and pushed forward, Eve enters the next trials with new focus. She moves with purpose, no longer restrained. One by one, she clears every challenge. Then the mood shifts. One day she goes looking for Tatiana and finds her room empty. Everything is gone. Without a word, Eve walks straight to the director's office. The director doesn't avoid the truth. She says Tatiana is no longer part of the Ruska Roma. She didn't have what was needed. She felt sorrow. Then Eve hears what she's been working toward for years. She is ready. The final test is here. Eve enters a room where another girl waits, someone who has trained just as long. The final trial is exact. Put together a gun, load one bullet, pull the trigger. Eve completes each step calmly and shoots at the girl without hesitation. Later, a young John Wick is shown. The director of the Ruska Roma carves a mark into his back, naming him one of the protected. She says there's no turning back from this point. Eve watches closely, taking in everything. As he walks away, she follows at a distance. She wants to understand who he really is. John meets her gaze and says it plainly. The door will close soon, and she still has time to walk away. He's still searching for his own way out. Not long after, Eve gets her first real mission. She's assigned to protect a young woman, the daughter of a powerful ally tied to the organization. There's a real threat someone will try to abduct her. From this moment on, the girl's life is in Eve's hands. They give Eve a mission and send her out to make contact. The story shifts to a high-end party, full of elegance and distractions. But Eve stays alert. She spots her target right away, and just as expected, danger follows. A team of trained attackers moves in fast, aiming to snatch the girl. Eve engages, but the fight starts rough. These men are skilled, aggressive, and well-prepared. For a brief moment, it looks like she might lose. Then she adapts. Her movements sharpen. One by one, she drops the attackers. But the fight isn't over. One of the men has already taken the girl and is escaping. Eve doesn't pause. She grabs a hammer nearby and charges. Fueled by instinct and fury, she strikes with full force. Every hit lands until the man collapses. She pulls the girl away and gets her to safety. Later, Eve sits quietly while a new tattoo is etched into her skin. The director stands nearby, watching with pride. Eve is no longer a student. Eve is fully active in the field, handling dangerous missions with speed and precision. In one moment, she finishes a job, cleans a wound in a bathroom, and sends confirmation of the kill. Seconds later, her phone lights up. Payment confirmed, $750,000. Meanwhile, she leaves the scene. Suddenly, out of nowhere, another car crashes into hers at full force. Eve reacts instantly, exits the vehicle, and eliminates the attacker in seconds. But something makes her stop. On the man's hand is a symbol, a cross, the same one worn by those who tore her life apart long ago. She doesn't hesitate. She cuts off the marked hand and brings it straight to the director. The director's face turns grim. That symbol belongs to a group older and more dangerous than the Ruska Roma, a secret order, bound by their own rules. No one controls them. No one crosses them. They are shadows with no names. But Eve has already decided what comes next. She's going to the Continental. The next day, Eve approaches Winston. She stands tall and introduces herself without hesitation. The same girl he once helped, the one he placed under Ruska Roma protection. Eve returns with a mission. She tells Winston she's going after the ones responsible for her father's death. The director had warned her how dangerous they are, but Eve is done being afraid. She's ready. Winston understands her and says the search for truth once led humanity out of paradise. Eve doesn't blink. She says she's ready to be cast out, then places one of the most valuable assassin coins on the table. Winston pauses. That coin changes everything. He finally tells her the truth. The people with the cross symbol aren't tied to any known group. They follow a cult, ancient, secret, and loyal to nothing. One of them, Daniel Pine, is currently in a connected hotel. The location is Prague. Winston makes a quiet call. The answer is quick. Daniel Pine has a bounty on his head, $2 million. As Winston accepts the room key, the Ruska Roma director calls, wishing good luck. Eve checks into room 314. She enters silently, sets up across the hall, and watches. But she isn't the only one. Daniel Pine has been marked with other attackers. Eve steps inside, ready for violence. Instead, she finds a young girl, Ela, Daniel's daughter. Their eyes meet and everything slows. In that moment, Eve sees herself, the girl she once was. Then Daniel walks in. Eve doesn't waste a second. She tells him exactly why she's there. Years ago, someone wearing his mark was part of her father's death. She wants the truth. But before he can answer, everything shifts. Lena, a powerful figure staying in the same hotel, raises the bounty. The price on Daniel's head jumps to 4 million. The news spreads instantly. Daniel, breathing hard, tells her what's really happening. It's not just about him. They want him out of the way so they can take Ella. His daughter is the real target. Suddenly, the room explodes into chaos. Armed assassins break in, weapons ready. Eve reacts fast. Every move is sharp and calculated. She holds them off long enough for Daniel to grab Ella and escape. But Lena is always one step ahead. When Eve and Daniel meet again, his words cut deep. No one escapes the cult. Once you're inside, the connection never dies. But if she helps him protect Ella, he'll give her what she came for, the names and locations of the others behind her father's death. He kneels next to Ella, says goodbye, and asks her to trust Eve. Eve and Ella try to escape alone, but the past is chasing them. The same force that once shattered Eve's life is back, faster and stronger. It all collapses in moments. Daniel is killed in front of his daughter. Eve sees it happen, but can't stop it. Then a heavy blow knocks her out. When she wakes, Ella is gone. Somewhere else, Lena speaks with the Chancellor. She mentions a woman, not a bounty hunter, not part of any crew, someone who fought only to protect the girl. They don't have a name. For now, she's been left under continental protection. Eve tries to defend herself. She didn't break any rules. She didn't kill on sacred ground. The verdict comes down. She won't be marked for elimination. The bloodshed started with others, but there's a price. She has to give up her room. She doesn't argue. She leaves immediately and heads to a trusted weapons dealer. She asks to see the private collection. As the doors open, a kill squad storms in. No warnings, no mercy. Eve doesn't hesitate. She grabs the finest weapons within reach and pulls the pin on a grenade. When the dust settles and the smoke fades, silence fills the room. Eve steps back inside, alert but hopeful. The shop owner is alive. Grateful, he offers more than just gear. He shares a secret, a fragment of truth. No one knows exactly where the cult is. Every person who has tried to find it has disappeared. But there's a whisper, passed quietly from survivor to survivor. They say the cult gathers deep in the mountains, where legends and death blur together. Eve listens closely, then nods. She asks for a vehicle. Without hesitation, he hands her the keys to a Mustang. She drives out with purpose. The road winds through sharp turns and cold air climbing higher. No hesitation, no turning back. Somewhere ahead, her story is either ending or just beginning again. As the car climbs, her phone rings. The director is on the other end, sharp, steady. She already knows what Eve's doing. Her voice cuts through with authority. Eve has crossed a line. She's ordered to turn back. If she continues, there will be no more choices. Eve says nothing. She ends the call with calm finality. Later, she drives through a quiet mountain town. In a shop window, something catches her eye. A music box, just like the one she had as a child. Memory tugs at her. She steps inside and orders a coffee, but something's wrong. The stillness in the room doesn't feel natural. Then a massive man enters the shop. The mood turns. He's not here for conversation. Before he can move, Eve strikes first. Her training kicks in. The room erupts into violence. She fights with everything at hand. Broken glass, utensils, anything sharp. The man is strong, brutal, but she snaps his arm and finishes him with a clean shot. But the waitress blocks the door, blade in hand. She moves fast, but Eve is faster. She disarms her, traps her in the back room, and slips into the street. More attackers follow. The shop becomes a war zone. Small space, no cover. Eve fights with lethal precision. She doesn't come out unscathed, cut, bruised, bleeding, but she survives. She escapes down a narrow alley, leaving bodies behind. From a distance, a sniper watches. The Chancellor's eyes. He sends the report. The outsider is still alive. Eve keeps moving, but something feels different now. The town itself is wrong. Faces follow her. People start attacking, not just mercenaries, locals, men, women, elders, all moving with the same violent purpose, like something has taken them over. Eve fights. Every step is survival. Her body breaks down, but her will does not. Still, the numbers overwhelm her. They close in, drive her into a corner. That's when Lena appears. Lena said nothing. She simply stepped forward, pulled back Eve's collar, and saw the tattoo. That was all she needed. One command followed to put her down. Eve woke chained and weak in a hidden chamber deep in the mountains. Nearby, the Chancellor stood beside Ella, his voice low and too calm for the cruelty it carried. He told her that her father had broken sacred law by trying to take her away from the sect. Ella stared straight at him. Her voice didn't shake. She told him she hated him for taking her father. Lena approached and confirmed what they had suspected. Eve was Ruska Roma. The Chancellor didn't flinch. He calmly revealed that years ago he had met with the director of the Ruska Roma. They had formed a silent understanding, a balance between their worlds. Both sides kept their distance, until now. Eve, alert despite the chains, spoke clearly. She wasn't sent. No one ordered her to come. But now that the lines had been crossed, the Ruska Roma would be pulled into this, whether they wanted to be or not. The Chancellor gave nothing away. He said his son had betrayed their bloodline by trying to take Ela, by turning from a legacy older than memory. That was why he would keep her. She was his shape. But Eve refused to stay silent. She told the truth that never left her. Men bearing his mark had stormed her childhood home. They killed her father. They tried to kill her. The Chancellor turned his back to her and pulled Lena aside. In a hushed exchange, he shared a secret he had buried for years. Eve hadn't come for money or vengeance on behalf of a client. She had come because her father, the man the cult destroyed, was theirs. And that meant Eve was Lena's sister. Lena staggered under the weight of it. The truth shattered everything she believed. Then it happened. Gunfire. Chains broken. Eve was already gone. Lena chased her through the corridors out into the cold air. They met outside, alone, surrounded by tension and the crackle of chaos behind them. Both out of breath. Both carrying a lifetime of pain. Lena spoke first. Her voice wasn't steady. She said she always thought Eve had died, that no one ever came for her. By the time anyone could reach her, she had already crossed the line. She had already been killed. There was no saving her. But Eve had been spared. She had a chance to grow without blood, without the weight of this world. They had tried to protect Eve, to give her a clean slate, a different life. Lena said their father believed he could fix his failures through Eve. But to her, that hope was always a lie. Redemption didn't exist. Eve disagreed. Her father fought for her future, and when he couldn't protect her anymore, the Ruska Roma gave her what he never had: choice. She made her choice. She walked this path on her own. But now it was no longer about justice or truth. What she wanted was revenge. Around them, everything paused. The attention of every assassin, every follower, locked on the two sisters. The Chancellor gave the final order to end it. Explosives were fired. The blast hit hard. Both sisters were thrown, wounded. Lena took the worst of it. Eve, barely holding on, crawled to her. Bloodied and weak, Lena whispered the one truth that hurt more than all the rest. She had been only 9 when they told her Eve was gone, and she had missed her every day since. Then she was still. Something inside Eve changed. The grief didn't destroy her. It lit a fire, something deeper than rage. When the soldiers came to clear the wreckage and search for survivors, they had no idea what was waiting. Eve rose from the ashes, relentless, leaving no one standing. After everything, she picked up a radio and spoke directly to the Chancellor. Her voice was calm. She told him this wouldn't end until he was dead. The message was clear, and the Chancellor knew it couldn't be dismissed. He contacted the director of the Ruska Roma immediately, accusing her of letting one of her own break the rules and ruin the delicate balance that had kept their two worlds from descending into war. The director listened in silence, then answered with measured authority. The Ruska Roma did not want war, but if someone stepped beyond their code, they would answer for it. The Chancellor threatened to erase the Ruska Roma entirely. Still composed, the director gave him one last option, a way to end this cleanly, quietly, and without a full-scale conflict. They reached an agreement. If Eve was still alive past midnight, there would be consequences. The director moved quickly. She asked for the location of the mountain town, a place kept secret for years, and said the knowledge would die with her. Then, without hesitation, she made her decision. She officially cast Eve out of the Ruska Roma, and in her final move, one that could never be undone, she made a call. She summoned the only man who had never failed, John Wick. She sent him directly to the Chancellor's doorstep. At the same time, the Chancellor delivers his own command. No one is to interfere. From this moment forward, the path is clear. The hunter is John Wick. The target is Eve. When the moment finally arrives, they meet face to face. Wick gives her a single chance. Walk away now and live, or stay and accept death. Eve doesn't hesitate. She stays. Wick sees it in her eyes, something fierce and unbreakable. So he makes a choice. Not once, but 3 times he spares her life. Each time she rises again, unwilling to surrender. Her need to avenge her father burns deeper than any wound. Even after he defeats her once more, he urges her to go. But then they both glance at the clock. Midnight is closing in. If the contract isn't fulfilled by then, everything will shift. The cost will be far greater. Wick steps back. He says nothing, he just lets her go. Elsewhere, the Chancellor receives word from his watcher. The outsider is still alive. Emergency protocols are reactivated. Without hesitation, the Chancellor gives a new order. Every citizen under his control is now part of the hunt. The mission is absolute. Take her down. Eve doesn't run. She strikes first. Driven by fury and focus, she begins her own assault, storming through the homes of those tied to the cult. Her movements are precise, her actions merciless. No hesitation, no second chances. Eventually, she reaches the armory, the heart of their power, the place where their deadliest weapons are kept. Word spreads quickly. Everyone rushes to stop her. The Chancellor, feeling her getting closer, closer to the truth, to Hila, to him, gives one final command to kill her. Eve, now fully unleashed, tears through the enemy ranks like a force of nature. Gunfire crackles through the air, grenades rip through concrete, and flames swallow the battlefield. Amid the chaos, one figure still stands between her and everything she's come for. The Chancellor's top enforcer, his most trusted and lethal warrior. He is the last obstacle. Their clash ignites at the heart of the destruction. Fire roars, steel sparks, bullets slice through smoke. Neither gives ground. In the middle of it all, Eve vanishes into the haze, moving with precision, driven by instinct and years of pain. Her mission is clear now to finish it. She checks her compass. No fear in her eyes. Then she flips the switch on her flamethrower. Back at headquarters, one of the Chancellor's men urges him to extract his enforcer. But the Chancellor refuses. In his eyes, a true leader never runs. A true leader fights. Suddenly, a new alert comes through. John Wick has gone silent. No signal, no trace. He's vanished. At the same time, in the shadows far from the battlefield, Ella is being taken, pulled from safety and dragged back toward danger. Back on the burning ground, Eve and the Enforcer meet once more. Their final battle begins. He strikes first, unleashing a blast of fire from his flamethrower. But Eve counters instantly, hitting him with a high-pressure wave that shreds through the flames. The fight is brutal. Neither side lets up. Overwhelmed, Eve is saved by a single, perfect sniper shot. John Wick. The shot reveals his position, and within moments, every assassin in the network is after him. Meanwhile, Eve intercepts the Chancellor as he tries to escape with Hila. He insists the cult will survive. Eve doesn't speak. She raises her weapon and fires. Then she lifts Hila into her arms and carries her to safety. John radios the director. The job is done. Later, Daniel, alive and in hiding, reunites with his daughter. For a moment, peace seems possible, but Winston warns Eve. The cult isn't gone, they're still moving, and they're coming. At the end, Eve sits quietly, watching a Ruska Roma ballet. Her expression is unreadable. A message arrives on her phone. She's now worth $5 million.